Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasa Sankara
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama
Shri Shri Gaur Nityananda ki
Jai.
My Grace Shri Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki
Jai.
Chanting sometimes.
Thank you, Prabhuji. That was a wonderful kirtan. Thank you, everyone, for coming. So now we move on to the next part of the program, where we're going to be hearing on the topic. Can anyone say what is today's topic?
Is the apple red?
The mystery of perception. So the topic itself is very interesting, and we have a special speaker, Her Grace Danakeli Mataji, to make this topic even more interesting. I always love hearing Danakeli Mataji because she makes the topic like very simple and easy for anyone to understand and interesting, and she adds and her beautiful dramatic expressions makes it even more fascinating to hear from her. So I'm very, very excited to hear from Danakeli Mataji. So I'll let her do more of the talking and shut my mouth.
I will apologize in advance if we put anybody to sleep tonight. Do we have anybody here for the first time or relatively newish? Oh, welcome. What's your name? Navratna? Navratna. So this is your first time to the Bhakti Yoga Club. Anybody else? And your name?
Juanita.
Juanita. Welcome. Are you by chance at all familiar with the text Bhagavad Gita, Juanita? Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure how to begin because I wasn't knowing who the audience would be. Bhagavad Gita is Krishna's, well, we've got a very young member here of the club. Hope they're going to be a good listener.
She's very nice. She's very nice.
Good.
Yeah.
So Bhagavad Gita is Krishna's almost 2-hour conversation with Arjuna on a battlefield. Arjuna is having what's called an anxiety attack. Anybody here ever had an anxiety attack? Yeah. Arjuna's having an anxiety attack. And the cause of his anxiety attack is this existential crisis that he's going through. Arjuna is having an existential crisis as he goes to war, because what is he facing when he goes to war? What does a person face when they go to war? Yeah. Killing somebody and or being killed. So they say there's no atheists in the foxhole. So being faced with such a scary scene in front of him, Arjuna has an existential crisis. Where am I? Why am I here? What am I doing here? Should I fight? Maybe I should go AWOL. So right before the battle begins, Arjuna presses the pause button on the battle, and he and Krishna have a discussion. So Krishna has very little time to enlighten Arjuna. All the warriors are there with their bow and arrows, with all their weapons, just ready to go at it towards each other, right? And here's these two stopping to have a philosophical discussion. In the process of enlightening Arjuna, what's he enlightening Arjuna about? Well, he begins with self-realization. Who are you? The reason Arjuna can't figure out what to do, have you ever been in that situation? Should I turn left or should I turn right? Should I pick A or should I pick B? Should I do this or should I not do this? Dilemma, we can't, and it seems like damned if you do, damned if you don't. If I pick A, there's some problems. But if I pick B, there's also problems. So what should I do? So Krishna's instruction to Arjuna is on self-realization, to explain to Arjuna what you are. And in order to explain to Arjuna what he is, necessitates explaining one other thing. What is that? Exactly. So to explain to Arjuna what you are requires concomitantly to explain what you are not. Now, most people today, we travel to universities for the purpose of meeting students, usually out in the free speech zone, and distributing copies of Bhagavad Gita. We meet students and we say, hi, have you heard of Bhagavad Gita before? And they'll say yes or no, whatever. And then we'll give a very brief introduction to the book, generally saying this is the ancient Sanskrit text of India that discusses the topic of self-realization. And unfortunately, too many students say, oh, I'm not interested in self-realization. I'm not interested in that. Or I already know who I am. What department of knowledge at the university, so many departments, which department is teaching us who we are? Well, many people are of the opinion that modern science, which today goes by a few names such as naturalism. In the past, if you called somebody, if I said, oh, so-and-so is a naturalist, it meant that they liked nature, that they were always out in nature, appreciating the trees and the ecology and like that. But a naturalist today, that word is now used today to refer to persons who believe that everything happens by natural laws. Nothing more. There is nothing more, they say. They used to be called atheists. But what's in the word atheist?
Theist.
Theist. So they no longer wish to be called atheists because in order to say atheist, you have to acknowledge theism. And they don't want their position to be based on theism, even though it's the anti-theism. They prefer to go by the name naturalist. Everything happens by the natural laws, like laws of thermodynamics, etc., laws of nature. The other terminology for modern science is physicalism. Physicalism means everything's physical. So anyway, Arjuna is having the same difficulty that today's college students are having, and that is he's under the impression that he's this bag of bones. However beautiful that bag of bones might be, or how powerful that bag of bones might be, he thinks he's this bag of bones. So Krishna wants to teach Arjuna that that's not what you are, in the course of enlightening him. So interestingly enough, many people think, oh, Bhagavad Gita, that's a religious text. It's a Hindu text. Thank you. Oh, it's a text about God. A lot of students do that. Oh no, I've never heard of Bhagavad Gita before. What is that? And we'll say like one or two sentences, and then they'll say, does it have anything to do with God? Is it like a religious thing? Many people think like that. But you'll be pleasantly surprised to learn that in addition to speaking about God, Krishna himself has so much practical, down-to-earth knowledge to share. And we want to present this evening some of Krishna's teachings in Bhagavad Gita that will put modern science to shame. Before we began tonight, Bhupala told us, I asked her what field she was getting her master's degree in, and she said material science. So we had a little joke about that. The material science that Krishna teaches, Bhagavad Gita, and then again in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is considered the graduate study of Bhagavad Gita. Have you read Bhagavad Gita?
Oh, a little bit.
Little bit. So it's 18 chapters, and it's a deep book. It's not something you cruise through. You can read it again and again and again. You can read it 50 times. And the 50th time, it'll be different than the 49th time. It's just like a new book. You know, some books you read, you go, okay, put that on the shelf, finished. And you never pick it up again. At most, you might read it twice, at most. Otherwise, but Bhagavad Gita is new each time. Then there's Srimad Bhagavatam, which is 18,000 verses, whereas Bhagavad Gita is 700. And that huge work, within that huge work, is a topic called Sankhya, or Sankhya Yoga, which basically means study of material science. So what is the major differences? And we should know this. If we actually want to be devotees of Krishna, or even we just want to become self-realized, to understand our spiritual nature, yet we are, through our schooling, through our occupation, wrapped up in the material paradigm of modern science, naturalism. We need to know what Krishna says about matter. So what are some of the main differences between the description or understanding of matter that modern scientists have, as opposed to the Vedic understanding of matter. Modern science says that matter, this stuff, this inanimate stuff, is the foundation of reality. In other words, it's real. Real is defined as that which has always been there, and which is the foundation of everything else, like the building blocks or whatever. So modern science says matter is reality, and everything else is the product of matter. Objects, like my glasses, whatever, the phone, objects, bodies, everything, stars, everything comes about by they evolve by the workings of the laws of nature. And that the mind, intelligence, consciousness, that these are just what's called epiphenomena. Epiphenomena means something which is a product of the first thing. So they'll say the mind and consciousness is an epiphenomena of matter, a product of matter. And that mind and intelligence and consciousness as epiphenomena, they don't have any effect on matter in return. Sankhya, or the Vedic view of matter, says it opposite. The Vedic view of matter is 180 degrees diametrically opposed to the description given by modern science. The Vedic conception of matter is that what's real, what is the foundation, is consciousness. And that from consciousness, by the choices that consciousness makes. But what is consciousness? Consciousness, or the soul, consciousness is the energy of the soul, is that which makes choices, that has will. And that through the will and the choices of consciousness, all things become objectified. Science says from matter, consciousness arises as an epiphenomenon. Vedic Sankhya philosophy says from consciousness, all else manifests as an objectification of consciousness.
Can you repeat that again?
Yes. Science will say that all things that are subtle, the mind, intelligence, consciousness, is a product of matter. In other words, it's an epiphenomenon of matter.
Can you make it a bit simpler?
They will say that if you take matter, here, let's take some atoms. Here's one, here's another one. Oh, here's another one. Well, golly, let's put those together, we'll get a molecule. And here, let's take this molecule and that molecule and that molecule, and we'll put them in a beautiful little package, and we'll call it a one-cell organism. And then we do this, and then we do that. And you just build up all this matter into a very beautiful form. And oh, look, it looks like a human being. And consciousness came. You know, the table's not conscious. Nobody's going to object if I slap the table. It's not going to say, ouch. It will have no perception that I'm hurting it. But if I pinch Sumit, he's starting to fall asleep, so I pinch him. And he says, ouch! Consciousness. He's not thinking, oh, you know, such and such force of pressure hit this nerve, and then the neuron fired, an electrical signal went up my arm, and then it went into my mind, and the mind said, please say these English words. Ow, that hurt. And, you know, he just immediately, when I pinch him, ouch, because he experienced it. So material science will say, modern science will say that such consciousness is simply an epiphenomenon, a product of matter. That really, you're just a bag of chemicals. And the only difference between you and this table is that your chemistry is a little bit more fancy. And therefore, you do things like talk and cry and laugh and think. If we could just somehow get this table to have a little fancier chemistry, it would also have a conversation with you. But Sankhya philosophy, the Vedic philosophy says, no, capital N-O, consciousness is what's real and original. And from consciousness, all else devolves, if you will. That everything is an objectification of consciousness. Devolve instead of evolve, you know? Because consciousness is the highest. So, simple example. I want to build a house. I all of a sudden got all this money, and I'm thinking of my dream house, you know? So I sit in my room, and in my mind, I picture the dream house with all the rooms and all the paraphernalia and the landscaping outdoors. And I've got this beautiful picture in my mind. Now what do? Well, now I pull out a piece of paper and draw it out so I can show the architect. I mean, I can explain it with words, but I got to put it down and put the words and the pictures, the diagram down on paper or on the computer or whatever. And then what? Is that going to make me happy? Oh, look at this beautiful house I drew. I can't live in it. Now I have to go and like collect the bricks and collect the concrete and collect the stones and do the labor and put it all together. So where did that house come from? Who can say, where did that house come from? I'm sorry?
From a dream.
From my consciousness. I thought of it. I conceived that house in my consciousness by saying, I want a big, beautiful dream house. Then it became, that big, beautiful dream house became objectified. As soon as my consciousness said, I want such and such, then it became objectified in my mind. And I had it all drawn out, the colors, the shape, the dimensions in my mind. Then it became objectified on paper with ink because I drew out a plan and a, you know, however architects do that, the blueprint, right? I think it's called blueprint. So I drew out the whole blueprint and all the dimensions. And then further, it became objectified as bricks and stone and concrete, and there it is. Now I got the key and I can go in. So we said that tonight's topic was, is the apple red? modern science will say that there's a all there is matter. That's all there is. There's nothing else. There's only matter. And that matter has properties, momentum, charge, position, mass. That's what they measure. And they measure objects against other objects. Like, what's the position of that camera? I'll get out my little measuring stick and, okay, X coordinate, Y coordinate. What's the mass? Okay, I'll get a scale, put it on the scale. What's the momentum? I can like measure its speed. What's the charge on the electron? You know, they describe the properties of matter by taking other objects to measure them. So modern science says there's only matter and the properties of matter. So if you ask the question, is the apple red? Their argument would be that there's some physical thing called red that comprises at least the skin of the apple. It has some property. According to the Vedic description, red is a word. And if I say the word red, everybody here pictures red. If I say the word sweet, everybody knows what that tastes like. According to Sankhya philosophy, we have our senses. So see, here's an apple. So my eye will perceive, have a sensation. When my eye interacts with the sense object, it has a sensation. Okay, light waves hit the eye, in this case, between 650 and 780 nanometers, we'll call it red. The light waves hit the eye, the retina becomes stimulated, the cones and rods do their little dance, and neurons and electrical energy go back into the brain, and a whole big science to vision. Not only seeing color, seeing brightness, luminosity, shape, size, dimension. So that's the eye. The eye got a bunch of sensation from this object. The ear, it also gets some sensation. It hears a crunch. Somebody bit into the apple. So the ear gets some sound waves coming in. Crunch. The nose gets a sensation. The aroma of an apple. The tongue gets a sensation. The sweet taste of the apple. And the tactile sense gets some sensation. Touch the apple, it's hard, it's firm. Have any of those senses, where in that in all those sensations, what the eye was seeing, what the ear was hearing, etc., where in there is the experience of an apple or the redness of an apple? I could put up a camera. Here, we'll just build one right now. here's a lens. Here's the apple. We have a lens pointing at the apple, and then we'll have the lens hooked up to some kind of photocell receptor thing over here, and then we'll connect a little spool of paper with a printer on it, and whenever light waves that are in between 650 and 780 nanometers hit that photocell, it'll set off an electric current that comes over here and triggers the printer, and the printer types out, "I see a red color," on the paper. And it comes out, and you pick it up, and it says, "I see a red paper. I see a red color." How many people here, based on that description, will vote yes that that little contraption experienced the color red? Is experience simply sensations? Sankhya philosophy, Vedic philosophy, says that the sensations are simply the senses touching the sense objects. But it doesn't say anything. We can measure the wavelength, we can measure the amplitude of the sound, we can measure the mass, the speed. But where does the experience happen? Just like I can describe something, I'm going to describe what a pineapple tastes like. I'm going to explain to you what it feels like. I'm going to put it in writing, and I'm going to pass you the paper. And you're going to have this whole, paragraph or two describing what the pineapple tastes like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, everything. Then I give it to you. Are you experiencing a pineapple?
No.
No. But I've linguistically put it all down in black and white. I've described it. So you have knowledge of the experience, but you haven't gotten the experience. So Sankhya philosophy deals with experience. So the senses aren't experiencing, they're just getting a sensation. There's no consciousness there. How is your eye any different? Okay, it's fancier, but in essence, how is it any different than that little machine that I just built here with a camera, lens, and a little photocell, and a little electric current, and a little printer? And when light waves that were in between 650 and 780 nanometers happened to hit that photocell, it triggered an electric current, and the paper got printed on it. I see a red light. Anybody here think that camera experienced redness? No, there's no consciousness there. Similarly with our eyes and ears and nose and mouth and tactile sense. So modern science would call that underdetermination, that the senses have collected all this data. Each sense had a different type of data that it collected, but it's underdetermined, meaning it hasn't fully explained the object. So now, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains at the end of the 3rd chapter, text 42. Krishna says that above dull matter are the senses. That's what got the sensations. Then he says, above the senses is the mind. What does the mind do? The mind conceptualizes. The mind says, oh, the eye's got this data input. That means color. The ears got this data input. That means sound. The tongue got this data. That means taste. So that's the mind. It conceptualizes the data. Otherwise, it's just what? Electric currents going to your brain. Then Krishna says, above the mind is the intelligence. So with the mind, still, reality is underdetermined. Because all you've said now is, I've got sound, I've got taste, I've got aroma, I've got color, I've got texture. Then Krishna says, higher than the mind is the intelligence. What does the intelligence do? It takes all those things, puts them together, and defines the object. Oh, if you have red color and crunchy sound and sweet taste and nice aroma and firm texture, that's an apple. So the intelligence has defined the object by putting all that together. But still, reality is underdetermined because there's still more to it. Then Krishna says, above the intelligence. Well, he leaves this one out in this verse, but above the intelligence is ego. Ego means that which identifies intention. For example, the intelligence just said, that is an apple, based on all the sensory input that got fed into the mind, and the mind conceptualized it all. I, the intelligence, have decided that that's an apple. Higher than the mind is the ego, which determines intention. So what does that mean? Well, okay, here's an apple. Well, what about it? What's the purpose of it? Am I supposed to throw it at somebody? You know, am I supposed to throw it at somebody and give them a black eye? Am I supposed to bite it and eat it? Am I supposed to just put it on the shelf like a piece of art and look at it? So the ego is what discerns what is the intention of this thing. And it says, oh, it's meant to be food. It's food, that's what it is. Then above the ego, this is not explicitly explained here in Bhagavad Gita, but in other places. Above the ego, then, is what we can call the moral sense, often called the chitta, which determines, is it right or wrong? Is it good or bad? In other words, is food a good thing or a bad thing? Is it right for me to eat it or not right for me to eat it? You know, if it's like a poison berry, then you say, oh no, that's not good to eat, I'll die. So the moral sense has determined whether it's right or wrong, good or bad. And then Krishna says in 3.42, higher than all of them is the soul. And what does the soul do? The soul is what makes the decision. Shall I eat this or shall I not? And how is it going to base its decision? All the information that it got from the senses, the mind, the intelligence, the ego, the moral sense. But we both did the same little experiment here. We both concluded that the apple is food and it's good to have food. And, but I decide to eat it and you decide not to eat it. What's the difference? Because the soul makes its decision based on what's going to make me happy. And I'm feeling really hungry right now, and I happen to love apples, so yeah, that's going to make me happy to bite that juicy apple. And you're like, no, I'm actually doing a fast today. I already took a vow to fast today, or maybe I don't like apples, or whatever. So no, that won't make me happy to eat an apple right now. Or maybe I'm feeling suicidal. So, you know, arsenic is there. And the moral sense says, no, it's not good to eat arsenic. That's wrong to eat arsenic. But I'm feeling suicidal. So I say, well, I'm going to eat arsenic because that's going to make me happy. Yay, I get to kill myself, right? That's what choice means. You can choose the wrong thing. So modern science will say all there is matter, and information is an epiphenomenon of matter. In other words, there's matter, and we only get information because we do stuff to matter, like we measure it, you know, its position, its momentum, its mass, its charge. And they say that matter is always there. It's like an a priori accepted thing. It's always there. It has its specific position in space and instance in time. Vedic philosophy says there is not a priori matter. Rather, there's space and time. And when information is added into the fabric of space and time, then matter manifests. And what is that information? Where does it come from? If there's information, what must we conclude also exists? Where does information come from? Well, more specifically, where does information come from? If you just told me, I just got, you know, a whole truckload of information. An informant. If there's information, we must conclude that there's an informant. That's what like secret agents do, right? They're informants. They go and they collect intelligence, information from somebody, and then they come over here and they inform you. Oh, Mr. President, I've just got this information for you. They're an informant. That's why Krishna says, higher than matter is the senses. Higher than the senses is the mind and the intelligence and ego. Ultimately, highest is the soul. The soul is the informant. How did those bricks and those rocks and that concrete and that plaster and that paint and that wood become a beautiful house? How did that happen? Was it by magic? Was it by natural selection? Mutation of rocks? How did that house come into existence? What ingredient was added? Here's a beautiful pile of bricks. Here's a pile of rocks. Here's a pile of sand. Here's a pile of wood. We can sit here, till the universe ends and wait and watch and wait and watch and wait and watch. I'll bet you every penny on this planet that sand and wood and rocks and cement are never going to organize themselves into a big, beautiful dream house. But in 1 year's time, I saw all those piles of ingredients manifest into a dream house. How did that happen? What was the ingredient that got added to make it happen?
Intelligence.
Yes. Information. I had the intention. First, it started with my soul. I want a big, beautiful dream house that will make me happy. And then the moral sense, yes, that is good. That is very good. Everybody should have a nice house. It's not good to live on the street. And then the intention said, this is my intention to build the house. And then the intelligence, had the whole object there in full. And then the mind, conceptualizes it, the colors, and then the sense, and they all go to work. And that information gets put into the matter. So Krishna's actually explaining to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, I don't know what time is it here. Okay. Krishna's actually explaining to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita this incredible science of matter. And you might wonder, why are they wasting their time having a physics lesson on the battlefield when Arjuna's having an anxiety attack? He's having an existential crisis. Everybody's got their weapons ready to fight, and they're sitting there having a physics lesson. In the 7th chapter, text number 4, Krishna is telling Arjuna that I have so many energies, and my inferior energy is called matter, and it is comprised of earth, water, fire, air, ether, ego, mind, intelligence. Then the next verse, text 5, he says, but above all these, in addition to these, there's another energy of mine, which comprises the individual souls, who are, what are they doing? They're exploiting the resources of this material world. What does that mean? They're exploiting. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Exploiting the resources of the material world means they're using it for their happiness. And that's what I said, right? It all begins with the soul making a choice. That this is going to make me happy. Let me go and get it. And the moral sense says, yes, that is the right thing to do. And then the ego has the intention, okay, we're going to go over there, and and the intelligence and the mind and the senses, and they all work together to make the thing become objectified. Krishna also describes in Bhagavad Gita, what verse is that? 15:9, that when the soul transmigrates from one body to another, the soul is carrying their conception of life with them. And when they take birth in the womb of another mother, a certain type of ear and a certain type of eye, a certain type of nose, a certain type of tongue, a certain type of tactile sense gets built up in the new body, grouped around the mind. According to the configuration of the mind at death, one receives a particular instrument called the body, made up of senses, and they're all grouped around the mind. So Krishna's giving these instructions to Arjuna. Understand what material nature is. If you understand what material nature is, you'll understand what the senses are. You understand what the mind, the intelligence, the ego are. And then you realize that is not what you are. You're not the medium which carries information, but you are the informant. He who puts information into matter. Matter, therefore, in conclusion, matter, therefore, according to the Vedic conception, matter is simply a medium in which information is stored and relayed. Like, okay, I'm going to write something on a piece of paper and I'm going to hand it to you. I have some information that I want to transmit. Maybe I'm a journalist, okay? So I've got all this information that I want to disclose to the world. So I'm going to type up a whole article, right? And I'm going to print it out or email it to you, whatever. And now, in the privacy of your own home, you read that article. What just happened? Information has been transmitted from me to you, thousands of miles away. Well, how did that happen? Through the medium of either the computer screen or pen and paper. So the article itself, the paper with the ink on it, that's not information. It's the medium on which the information is stored. And if you and I speak the same language, then you know how to read the symbols on the page, which reveal the information. So, in a nutshell, the Vedic philosophy is saying that everything material, dull matter, the mind, intelligence, ego, are all different types of mediums in which information is injected into, stored, transmitted to the next person. Experience is not in the medium that's holding the information. Just like if I wrote a whole book on, my travels around the world, beautiful stories, even I might write very, very beautifully, lots of adjectives, and wow, you feel like you're there almost when you read my writings, But can you say you've just experienced the Bahamas because you read my travelogue of my trip to the Bahamas? No. And I explained the fantastic cheesecake that I ate. Did you just experience the cheesecake? Yeah. But you have a lot of information. You can almost kind of imagine it, but you haven't actually experienced it. So Vedic philosophy says that modern science is very truncated and very, very incomplete because it cuts off at the boundary between objective matter and subjective experience. Whereas Krishna and the Vedic literature is explaining that subjective experience is the real thing, and everything else is simply the travelogue. So to study material science means we're simply studying the travelogue. So back to our apple. Even a little child, a toddler, knows how to read the information that's coming from this object. This object, which we call an apple, is holding information. And what is the information that it's holding? That this is meant to be food. The intention of this is for you to eat, and that's a good thing. And it's sweet, and it's this, and it's that, it's juicy. A child understands that. Therefore, he knows to pick that up and put it in my mouth. Who's the original informant? Everybody should know the answer to this one. Krishna.
Krishna.
Don't be so shy
Krishna.
about saying it.
No.
You don't sound very convinced. Who's the original informant?
Krishna.
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 Because he's the original consciousness. So, Krishna's the original informant. That means he's the one that's putting information into his energies. No, this is his energies, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, repeatedly. 10.8, everything comes from me, right? 7.4, my material energy. Over and over and over again. So what is the main piece of information? What do you think? The main piece of information is that Krishna is putting into all of this material energy, gross matter, the senses, the mind, intelligence, ego. What do you think the main piece of information that Krishna is putting into everything? And if we don't know how to read stuff, we're gonna mess it up, right? You get your bottle of pills from the doctor, and the doctor tells you, there's instructions on how to take the medicine, and if you don't read it correctly, for whatever reason, maybe you're illiterate or you just didn't wear your reading glasses, somehow you don't read that prescription on the bottle properly, then you're going to take the medicine all wrong. Maybe you'll kill yourself or something, It says take 1 tablet a day, and you thought it said take 1 bottle a day, right? And you OD on it. So what's the main essential information that Krishna has injected into the fabric of time and space to manifest this material world? What main piece of information do you think Krishna is trying to transmit to us?
Difference between matter and soul.
Well, that's there.
How to live.
reach him.
How to live.
The relationship. To surrender and love him. That's basically the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes,
Give everything up.
he's
Period.
the information that he's putting into everything is that this is mine. Okay, how many people here would argue against my statement that these are my reading glasses? Anybody want to argue against that? Now, why do you all think these are Danakeli's reading glasses? Well, I put them on. You probably saw me wearing them for a few minutes. They're sitting right here in front of me. You saw them take them out of my purse. You've all read information from here on the level of intention that these belong to Danakeli. Whether you know it or not, you got that information. It's embedded in the matter. Because when I went to the store and I bought these, I immediately claimed them as mine. So my intention went into this matter. I infused that information. I put that information into this matter. These are my glasses. As soon as I paid for them and walked out of the store. Now, when everybody sees these, they're Danakeli's glasses. So you wouldn't just take them and take them home. And if you don't read it correctly, like toddlers haven't quite learned how to read matter yet. So a toddler will come and steal my glasses. They might even put it in their mouth, chew on it, take it home. They don't know what the intention is that they belong to me. They don't know the intention is to put on your eyes so you can see. They think it's a toy. When we don't know how to read the information that's embedded in matter, matter means dull matter, the senses, the mind, the intelligence, the ego. When we don't know how to read the information, then we do something stupid. Like instead of taking 1 pill a day, we take a whole bottle a day. Or like that toddler takes the glasses and starts chewing on them. So what's the main information that Krishna put into all this material energy, which is comprised of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego? That everything belongs to me. That means if everything belongs to Krishna, that means everything is meant for his devotional service. If something belongs to me, it's for my pleasure. It makes me happy to put these glasses on because then I can read. And without the glasses, I can't read. That's why I got these glasses, because it would make me happy. I only own things because they make me happy. They're for my convenience or whatever. They make me healthy, whatever. They make me wealthy, whatever. So what's the information that Krishna put into all material energy? That this belongs to me. Yes. And it's meant for my devotional service because it's mine. And if you take something which belongs to somebody else and you do something with that thing for your own pleasure, what are you called? A thief. In an ordinary, world, you go to jail. You get a reaction. Okay, $500 fine. Okay, 4 years in jail. Okay, off with your head. Whatever. You get a reaction. So because we don't know how to read the information that's embedded in material nature, we're making big mistakes. We're not using what's meant for Krishna's service for Krishna's pleasure. We're using it for our own benefit, or for my best friend's benefit, or my spouse's benefit, or my family's benefit, or my nation's benefit, or my pet dog's benefit. But we're not using it for Krishna's benefit. So what happens when you use something incorrectly? You get a reaction. Fire is meant, for warming your house or cooking. Fire is not meant for you to stick your finger in. So when an ignorant child comes up and, oh, that looks pretty, let me touch it, and touches the fire, they must get a reaction, because that's the laws of nature. So we are suffering in this world because modern science says there is no information in matter. There is no intention behind matter. There is no morality behind matter. And that is what you are, a bag of chemicals. So everything's being used improperly in this world, and that's why the world is suffering individually and collectively. So Krishna goes through all this effort to describe to Arjuna the nature of the material world and matter and ego and intelligence and mind and senses, just to make him understand that this all belongs to me and it's all meant to be used in my service. Therefore, Arjuna, your body, the body of a warrior, your bows and arrows are meant to be used in my service. Stop arguing that if I fight the war, I won't be happy. Stop arguing that, well, maybe if I fight the war, I will be happy. He keeps toggling, woo, 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 maybe I shouldn't. Krishna says, you're reading it all wrong. You're reading the whole thing all wrong. My intention has already been embedded in this situation. Here, I'll prove it to you, since you have so many doubts. Look, and Krishna shows his universal form and says, just see, how all the soldiers on both sides are rushing into my mouths, being devoured. Everybody on this battlefield is already dead. And you, Sabyasachi, can just be an instrument. So that is the intention. Krishna's intention is the supreme intent. We have our intentions, but our intentions are subservient to and dependent on Krishna's intention. So we can, and we do all the time, embed our intention and our sense of morality into matter. But we have very little freedom. There's boundaries set on us. But Krishna, being the manifester of matter, the proprietor of matter, has put his intention. And when we learn how to read that intention so that we use everything in his service, then we'll be actually happy. So that is Krishna's message in Bhagavad Gita. Now, Arjuna, have you understood this? If you haven't, I'll explain it all again. That's what Krishna told Arjuna. Have you understood it all? I know it's kind of a deep topic. Did you comprehend it here? I know you're shaking due to nervousness of the battle, but did you understand what I just told you? If you got it, great. Now take that information and do what you wish to do. He left it to Arjuna to decide what to do. Similarly, we are also left with that free will to choose what to do. Do I follow Krishna's intention, or do I trump his intention and put my intention on top of it? So we'll stop there, see if there's any discussion, comments, or questions.
Just to let you know, we have people online also.
Okay, and anyone online is also allowed to ask or comment.
They are from Dayton University.
University of Dayton students.
Hare Krishna.
You can see them.
Hare Krishna. If anybody has any kind of question or comment, we can take a few minutes to take about 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mataji. That was really a wonderful talk. It is very interesting, like the way that you presented it. So, like you ended it with saying that we always have a choice to either follow Krishna's instructions or put our intentions in it. And since from I don't know how many years or decades I have been habituated to putting my intentions to the different things and doing what I think is right, it is so very hard for me to do anything else except for that. And now, even if I want to follow Krishna's instruction, how do I know what is Krishna's instruction in my personalized situation?
As far as having the bad habit of putting our intentions above Krishna's intentions, habits cannot be broken unless we're steeped in knowledge. The child has a terrible habit of putting his finger in the fire repeatedly, always getting burned. But somehow or other, they just can't give up the habit. So it requires knowledge. Krishna says that when your doubts have been destroyed by the weapon of knowledge, then you can proceed on this path. So Bhakti Yoga actually, the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are considered the Karma Yoga chapters. The second 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are considered the Bhakti Yoga chapters. And the last 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita are considered the Jnana Yoga chapters. Why are the Jnana Yoga chapters at the end? Well, Krishna describes, Bhakti Yoga in the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, But then he goes almost like a regress, a retrograde motion. He gives jnana yoga. Why? Because most people, unfortunately, but it's the truth, most people engage in bhakti yoga on the sentimental platform. But that won't get us real far. Because what happens to sentimental people? They bump into obstacles on the path of devotional service. And what is the cause of those obstacles? Doubts. Doubts. Because until you have revelation from Krishna and you meet Krishna face to face and shake hands with him, you will have doubts. So sentimental bhaktas will hit roadblocks. But Krishna says those obstacles or doubts must be destroyed by the weapon of knowledge. So then he spends 6 chapters discussing the modes of material nature, consciousness, divine and demonic qualities. Yeah. It almost seems like he's going backwards in his lessons. But because whatever doubts are still remaining in Arjuna's mind, and clearly there's doubts, and what's the proof that there's doubts in Arjuna's mind?
Still shooting.
Yeah, he's still sitting there. His bow and arrows are still on the ground where he threw them 6 chapters ago. You know, like at the end of chapter 1, he throws his bow and arrows on the ground. You know, then when we come to chapter 13, what's that, 12 chapters later, Krishna looks and Arjuna's bow and arrows are still on the ground. Golly, guess he still has some obstacles, some doubts. So now he teaches the Jnana Yoga section. So we must become very conversant with this knowledge. Like I said, Srimad Bhagavatam's the graduate study from Bhagavad Gita. You know, we think, wow, we're doing really good because I read 2/3 of Bhagavad Gita. You know, we have to like read Bhagavad Gita, and then we have to read Srimad Bhagavatam. All our doubts have to be destroyed. Then we can give up those bad habits. That's the obstacle. It's because of doubts. And you might say, I don't have any doubts. I don't have any philosophical doubts. It might not be philosophical doubts, but doubts in the heart. Why we don't surrender fully. There's some mistrust, you know. I'm not going to, you know, give you my phone to take home tonight because I don't completely trust you. You might drop it and break it or steal my password or something, you know. I don't completely trust you to give you my credit card for a week, you know. So we don't actually trust Krishna. Therefore, we have to read Bhagavad Gita because he's repeatedly saying in Bhagavad Gita that this material energy is mine. It comes from me. Everything's meant for my service. We have to learn how to read the material world. The material world is simply at every atom is simply saying, I am meant for Krishna's service. Use me in Krishna's service. I belong to Krishna. That requires knowledge. That's why the Sankhya philosophy, many people think, it's material knowledge. Well, matter belongs to Krishna. What's wrong with studying matter? Not the way the material scientists do it today. They take Krishna out of the picture. So now they just have dead matter with no intention and no morality and no choice. So hear from devotees who can give you knowledge. Read Prabhupada's books out loud. When you're by yourself, read them out loud because then you're hearing Prabhupada speak to you. Prabhupada actually told everybody you should hear my books. It means when you're at home all by yourself, don't just read out loud so you can hear the books. If you don't have somebody to read out loud with, read out loud to yourself. that okay?
Yes.
All right. Anything else before we?
So your free will, how do you train it and make it fall in line with Krishna's will?
Our will, how do we say?
Free will.
Our free will. One of the Rupa Goswami gives 6 symptoms of surrender. And one of those symptoms is that I make Krishna's will my will, rather than make my will Krishna's will. Most of us pray to Krishna. Oh, Krishna, I want to get that job over there. Could you please help me get that job? Could you please arrange that I get that job? Oh, Krishna, I want my friend over here to be cured of their cancer. Could you please cure my friend of their cancer? Oh, Krishna, I want to get an A+ on the exam. Could you give me an A+? We're always telling Krishna, this is my will. Could you please step in line with my will? You know, get on board with my will. But action. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Does not mean, oh, Krishna, give me this, do that for me. The Maha Mantra means, my dear Radha and Krishna, please engage me in your service. I'm tired of asking you to engage in my service. I've been doing that for lifetimes. Oh God, give me my daily bread. So a symptom of surrender is that I ask Krishna, please make your will my will. How do you do that? Please engage me in your devotional service. So we have to hear from the devotees of the Lord, those who know how to please Krishna through devotional service. We can learn from them. How can I please Krishna? It's a matter of practice. And most of us learn by going to the school of hard knocks. That when I put my will as supreme, it's number 1 on the list, and everybody else's will, including Krishna's, is below mine. Measure your satisfaction. At the end of the day, write a honest scorecard. How satisfying, how fulfilling, how happy was your day by doing that? But when we practice putting Krishna's will first, at the end of the day, we can say, by God, I think I tasted something that I never tasted before. It's a higher taste. So it requires practice, and that can only be done in the association of those who are more practiced at it than we are. So sadhu is the catalyst. The reaction won't go forward. You can go to the chemistry lab, mix all the ingredients together, add the heat, let it stir, come back 500 years from now, nothing has happened. Why? Because you fool, you didn't put the catalyst in. And it's just this big, you know, the catalyst. If you had put the catalyst in, 2 hours, that whole thing would have been done. So we need that catalyst, sadhu sangha. Nobody can do it on their own. So you're very fortunate to have nice association. Okay, anything else? Otherwise, we'll end there, and we're supposed to have a 10-minute kirtan before prasadam. We'll do.
I have a question. So it means that I understand that the association is a big part of this process of changing the new habits, right? And plus chanting and reading and all this. But sadhu sangha mean like the
Sadhu means devotees, sangha means association. Sadhu sangha.
Exactly, but it's but a true devotee, right?
the best devotees we can find. And you can get the best devotee right there in Prabhupada's books. Again, if you read out loud, then you'll have Prabhupada. You'll be hearing Prabhupada. You can also get his audio recordings and listen to him, and get video recordings and see him. And those who are following Prabhupada, you know, anybody who's, if you're a third grade student, you can get tutored in your math from a sixth grade student. You don't have to say, well, I'm going to wait till I get a PhD, you know, graduate, Einstein himself, to tutor me in math. You're only 8 years old. You don't need Einstein. You know, 12-year-old kid could be your tutor, right? And Krishna will always arrange that as you make advancement, your tutor will make advancement. Or if for some reason that tutor becomes stuck at he'll send you another one. If you're sincere, you want to go forward, Krishna will always make sure that you have access to somebody who's at least one step ahead of you.
So meaning, even when we are starting in this process, we don't have to worry or not knowing where to serve and how to serve, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
in the sense of everything is at the service, right? But sometimes there is a dilemma. Even that, what, who, or where to serve.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes is a dilemma.
Well, just like in this little group, you know, you're learning how to do some hearing and chanting, and then maybe they'll say, oh, can you help serve the prasadam or clean up or do the advertising, or simple, step by step. You come regularly to these meetings?
She serves
Yes,
prasadam every time.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
So you're already expert at
She's
it.
already.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I mean, but that is something that I do sometimes when I come, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about every day.
Well, we start off step by step. I do devotional service once a month. I do devotional service once a week. I start doing devotional service twice a week at home. I mean, we won't get into it right now, but you've probably heard something about how at home we can cook and make preparations and offer to Krishna. That's devotional service. To offer your food to Krishna, to chant Hare Krishna, to read the books. That's devotional service. Offer some flowers to your pictures on your altar. That's devotional service. You're probably doing more devotional service than you think you are. And even if you can't increase the quantity, increase the quality. To be fully present, not spaced out, just doing it mechanically, half asleep. Practice being fully present. You know, like when you talk to somebody, I've had this experience too many times. You talk to somebody looking over here. You're talking to them and they're like, or you're talking to them and they start looking at their phone. They're not paying attention. So before we work on quantity, I mean, we can work on quantity. We should work on quantity. But I'm just saying, we also have to work on quality to be more present. Chant attentively, read attentively, offer the food, offer the flowers with affection. Just like if your best friend, your lover came to your house, you wouldn't just here throw them the biscuit, you know. You'd make the whole atmosphere really nice, and everything's clean, and you talk to them sweetly, and da 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 da. You know, oh, why? Krishna's the original lover, so why with him it's just that, you know. So the devotional service is unlimited because the quality, even if we're not for some reason able to increase the quantity, the quality can be unlimitedly, infinitely improved. We can always do better tomorrow. Okay, we should probably stop there. We'll do 10 minutes of kirtan and then prasadam. You don't do japa, right? Okay. I saw people with bead bags. I thought maybe you did Rana japa. Good. who's your main Mia here.
There's
So
a couple.
now I request all of you to stand up and participate in the Kirtan.
There's a couple of learners. So just about kirtan, you know something. So kirtan is the yogic process given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago. We call it the Yuga Dharma. So it's a very powerful spiritual process or devotional service. It can practically do everything if we have the right association. As far as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Chetu Darpana Marjanam, that it would cleanse the consciousness. That source of, intention and knowledge. Cleanse it from what? From identifying with the mind, the intelligence, the false ego, the gross body, the self. A lot of misidentification. So therefore we make mistakes. Therefore our desire is centered here instead of on Krishna. That I belong to Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. So how can I orient life so I'm thinking, feeling, and willing for Krishna's pleasure? Then that's the spiritual formula. Then I become actually. So this is the Hare Krishna mantra, yogic process, where I, the tiny conscious soul, supreme soul, like being in the sun, there's an effect. It's just an immediate, natural effect, according to our attention, and as we develop knowledge of Krishna, little devotion develops. It can be quick, effectively happen in Krishna consciousness.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti Hare
Jai.